This is the BIGME B6 color-powered e-reader that promises to be way more than just a regular ebook reader. And this right here is the Kindle COLORSOFT, Amazon's best-selling color Kindle to date. Even though they do have a few things in common, there are also some major differences that could easily sway your decision depending on what you're looking for in an e-reader. And there's one more thing you definitely need to keep in mind. Depending on when you decide to buy them, the price gap can range from as little as about $10 to well over $100. So in this video, we're going to compare them point by point, so you'll know exactly which e-reader is right for you and the best price to wait for before pulling the trigger. Before we jump into the differences, let's quickly go over what these two devices have in common. They both use a Kaleido 3-color e-ink display, and they have exactly the same resolution, 300 ppi for black and white content and 150 ppi for color. So when it comes to image quality, there's really not a huge difference between them. That said, if you're planning to use one mainly for reading comics or books where color really matters, and you've never owned an e-reader before, keep in mind that the colors look much softer and far more muted than they do on a tablet. On top of that, neither one supports a stylus, and neither has physical page turn buttons either, so every interaction is done using the touchscreen. With that out of the way, let's get into the differences, because there are actually quite a few. Even though they share the same display resolution, the overall experience is noticeably different for several reasons. First, the Kindle COLORSOFT features a 7-inch display, weighs 219 grams, and measures 7.8 millimeters thick. The BIGME B6, on the other hand, comes with a 6-inch screen, weighs just 176 grams, and is only 6.98 millimeters thick. So basically, the BIGME is a little smaller, lighter, and slightly thinner, while the Kindle gives you a larger reading area in exchange for carrying a bit more weight. The second difference is that Amazon uses a custom display stack with higher driving voltage and proprietary optical coatings. The end result is a brighter looking color image, better contrast, and slightly less ghosting. That's the faint shadow of the previous page that briefly lingers on the screen before the next page fully refreshes. The BIGME, by comparison, uses what you could call a more standard Kaleido 3 implementation, without Amazon's custom display tuning. And honestly, you can tell. Out of the box, the screen looks noticeably darker and shows a little more ghosting. You can reduce both of those issues if you spend a few minutes dialing in the settings. For starters, you can turn on the dual front lights, which offer 36 adjustable brightness levels with both warm and cool lighting. You can also enable the high refresh mode to make page transitions look cleaner. Just keep in mind that using these settings will shave a little off the battery life. The BIGME is TUV Rhineland certified for its low blue light output and flicker-free display, making it a great option if you tend to experience eye strain during long reading sessions. The Kindle COLORSOFT sticks with the familiar paper-white look, a matte plastic body, a flush front display, and a clean, understated design. The BIGME B6 has a more squared-off, blocky appearance, with straight edges that make it feel rugged rather than elegant. Neither approach is objectively better. They're simply built with different design philosophies in mind. That said, some users have reported that the back panel on the B6 scratches more easily and tends to pick up fingerprints more than the Kindle. But when it comes to durability, there's one major difference that could easily be the deciding factor for you. The Kindle comes with an IPX8 water resistance rating, meaning it can survive being submerged in fresh water. The BIGME, on the other hand, doesn't have any official water resistance certification. On paper, the BIGME wins this round without much debate. It packs an octa-core MediaTek Helio P35 processor along with 4 GB of RAM, while the Kindle runs a lightweight, closed Linux-based operating system. As a result, the B6 delivers surprisingly strong performance for an e-reader, and you can definitely notice it when launching apps or navigating through menus. But having more power doesn't always translate into a smoother experience, especially for the one thing you'll do more than anything else on an e-reader, turning pages. The Kindle delivers extremely fast page turns, reportedly up to 25% faster than the previous Paperwhite, while also keeping ghosting to an absolute minimum. The BIGME, meanwhile, gives you 4 different screen refresh modes, and you can customize them to match your preferences. With the right settings, page turn speed can get very close to what the Kindle offers. On top of that, the BIGME only has 4 GB of RAM to handle the full Android operating system, so if you keep several apps open while reading, you may notice some slowdowns when switching between apps or moving through the interface. Now we get to one of the biggest differences in this comparison, and probably the one that'll ultimately determine which device is the better fit for you. There's no question that the Kindle COLORSOFT works incredibly well inside Amazon's ecosystem, making the whole experience effortless. Buying books takes just one click, everything syncs with Audible, and you get unlimited cloud storage for your Amazon purchases. But there's something important you need to know. Most Kindle ebooks are protected by Amazon's own DRM, or Digital Rights Management, and those restrictions are pretty strict. That means the ebooks you buy from Amazon can only be read on Kindle devices. You can't simply move them to another compatible e-reader. The BIGME B6, on the other hand, runs Android 14, giving you full access to the Google Play Store and complete freedom to install virtually any reading app you want, including Kobo, Libby for public library borrowing, or even the Kindle app itself. It also lets you customize the screen refresh settings independently for each individual app, which turns out to be surprisingly useful. And while it's true that many of those platforms also use DRM protection, most of them rely on Adobe DRM instead of Amazon's proprietary system. Adobe DRM is much more widely supported across different brands and devices, making it far easier to transfer your ebooks between compatible readers and, in some cases, even download the original file. That's something that's essentially impossible with ebooks purchased through Amazon's. When it comes to supported ebook formats, there's really no contest, no pun intended, because the BIGME is in a completely different league. Since it runs Android, it natively supports just about every major ebook format without requiring any file conversions. You simply connect it with a USB-C cable, drag and drop your files, and you're good to go. The Kindle, however, it's much more limited in this area because it only supports a small number of ebook formats natively. For everything else, you'll need to rely on Send to Kindle, Amazon's service that automatically converts your ebooks into a Kindle-compatible format. The problem is that those conversions don't always preserve the original formatting perfectly. The truth is that the BIGME software isn't quite as polished as the Kindle's, and it doesn't feel as well optimized right out of the box. For example, its two built-in reading apps, eReader and eReader Pro, still have a few rough edges. The highlighting tool isn't always accurate, some of the translations feel a little off, and you may occasionally run into unexpected app crashes. The good news is that fixing most of those issues is actually pretty easy. Since it's an Android device, you can simply install a different reading app from the Google Play Store, and for the most part, problem solved. However, there's one aspect of the BIGME that isn't so easy to fix, and it's something that has generated a lot of complaints from users. At the bottom of the display, the B6 includes a row of touch-sensitive shortcut buttons that provide quick access to features like your library, AI tools, storage, apps, and settings. On paper, that sounds like a useful feature, but in practice it can become a downside if you'd rather have more reading space or simply want a cleaner interface. First of all, those buttons can't be removed or hidden. You can disable them so they no longer perform any actions, but they always remain visible on the screen. And second, while you can remap what each button does, you can't change the icon displayed above it. Now we come to another one of the biggest differences between these two devices. Amazon says the Kindle COLORSOFT can last up to 8 weeks on a single charge if you read for about 30 minutes a day with the brightness set to a low level. In fact, some real-world tests have even reached around 80 straight hours of continuous reading. The BIGME B6, on the other hand, combines a 2,100 mAh battery with a full Android operating system running in the background, so its battery life is much more limited. You're generally looking at around 20 to 25 hours of total reading time. In other words, if you read every day, you'll most likely end up charging it once or maybe twice a week. So yes, the difference in battery life is absolutely massive. But if plugging in your e-reader once or twice a week doesn't bother you, then this probably won't be a deal breaker. Storage capacity is another category where the numbers look dramatically different, although in real life it matters a little less since ebook files are usually very small. The Kindle COLORSOFT comes with up to 16 gigabytes of built-in storage and doesn't include a micro SD card slot. The BIGME B6, by comparison, offers 64 gigabytes of internal storage and also includes a micro SD slot that supports expansion up to 1 terabyte. So when it comes to local storage, the BIGME is the clear winner by by a huge margin. Kindle users get free unlimited cloud storage for ebooks and audiobooks purchased through Amazon. That means if you ever run out of space, you can simply remove those titles from the device and download them again whenever you want to read them in the future. Smart features are becoming more and more important in consumer electronics, and e-readers are no exception. The Kindle COLORSOFT lets you highlight text in 4 different colors. It also includes a built-in dictionary and translation tools. And more recently, Amazon added Assistive Reader, a feature that can read your books aloud using an AI-generated voice. The catch is that you'll need to use wireless headphones, since the device doesn't have a built-in speaker. The BIGME, on the other hand, goes quite a bit further. For starters, it includes both a microphone and a built-in speaker, which already gives it an edge over the Kindle when it comes to smart features. But that's not all. It also comes with an AI assistant that can transcribe speech in 37 languages and even generate meeting summaries. It definitely sounds impressive on paper, but there are a few important details that many reviews don't mention. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe before you forget. Independent testing of its voice recognition has shown that it only worked reliably around 20% of the time, and its AI doesn't have access to real-time internet information. They're certainly interesting features, but they're not something you can really depend on for everyday use. The BIGME usually sells for around $185, while the Kindle COLORSOFT costs about $250, so there's normally a price difference of roughly $65 between the two. However, if you look at the price history, you'll notice that the COLORSOFT regularly drops to around $170 during sales. The BIGME has been much more stable and rarely sees significant discounts. So, to wrap everything up, both of these e-readers have their own strengths and weaknesses. And the truth is, there's no single winner for everyone. It all comes down to what matters most to you. If your top priorities are complete freedom with ebook formats and apps, borrowing ebooks from public libraries, having a built-in microphone and speaker, tons of storage, and deep customization options, then I'd definitely go with the BIGME. But if you'd rather have a larger screen, water resistance, battery life that lasts for weeks, polished software, and the convenience of buying ebooks with just one click, then my pick would be the Kindle. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll be happy to help you out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.